Hello, friends. We are in a troubling time when it comes to misinformation. Here at Forbidden Knowledge News, I've always taken an unbiased, open-minded, and responsible approach to presenting my own theories, and the views of our guests do not reflect that of my own. This show is for entertainment purposes only, and any information presented during this show is a live-action role-play scenario. Conspiracies are definitely fun to discuss in a responsible way. My suggestion to everyone that has an audience and presents theories and possibilities should present them as such, and in no way present unsubstantiated information as truth. All that being said, enjoy this episode. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Will Badie. First, a couple of announcements. Check out our affiliate, Brainsupreme. If you'd like to start your microdose journey, check out Brainsupreme and their website, brainsupreme.co. If you order right now, you're going to get 15% off the entire order. Just visit brainsupreme.co/discount/FKN15 or use the link right in the description. Watch the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana. That's available on Tubi and multiple streaming platforms. Get a Rokfin premium membership, rokfin.com/FKN Plus. Get access to our premium content. And finally, always download our podcast episodes directly through Spreaker. That's always free for you. Today, I want to welcome back to the show Will Badie. He is an author and co-host of the Hunger for Knowledge podcast with Rob Tibbins. He presents his insights into spiritual evolution through coaching and public speaking. His main goal is to inspire his fellow man to see the divine in all things. Will, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Excellent. Thank you for coming back. I really enjoyed our discussion last time, and you have a new ebook, which we're going to be talking about. You Are the God You Seek, and this is based on your spiritual understandings. Yeah. There may be a few deeply religious folks in the audience that get triggered by the title, but I've come to understand that dogma is basically a spiritual parasite that imprisons those that subject themselves to extreme religious beliefs of any kind. After my spiritual journey, I know exactly what you mean by this title, and it's not what some people may think it is, which we're going to discuss today. For me, it in no way means that I don't believe there is a source creator God of all, but I understand the concept of God much differently now after my spiritual journey. So there's lots to get into here. Before we do, it's been a little while since you've been on. Remind the audience a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing.
Well, I'm a spiritual seeker. Not too long ago, maybe a couple months back, I became a meditation teacher. And, I've been teaching meditation now for about 3 months or so. And it's one of those things with me now where I can't imagine life without teaching meditation anymore. Like, it's such a vital part of my life now. It really gives me the sense of purpose I think I was searching for most of my life. I think those that go along that spiritual path, they have a tendency to seek out
Mm.
service. We want to figure out how, because we see the innate value um, in ourselves, and then we see it in others. And like I said, I'm my life. I'm dedicating it to the service of just trying to leave this earth a better place by the time I leave. you know.
Excellent, man. I love it. So, give us a synopsis of your book.
Well, I made the book back in April when I was um, it coincided with me, becoming a certified meditation teacher. I felt like I needed, a certification to teach meditation, even though it's kind of absurd when you think about the idea of like the Buddha didn't get in his head. He's like, oh, I need a certificate to go teach meditation. And no, he felt an inclination to do it. It was more of a spiritual calling for me. But I was like, if people want to see the certificate, let's get that out of the way. And with that, I think that the inertia of that time, I had just quit my job, and I was sort of in like this no man's land of like, I don't know if I just like completely screwed everything up, but I knew that I needed to just move in the direction of where I was headed. So then I had at first I was gonna write just an article, and then that article became, like I was like, I can, flesh this out, and I just want to put something out, put an ebook out, and that's what it became. I named it "You Are the God You Seek" because uh, I know that, like you said, it's a very triggering title for some. I get it. I actually had a long email exchange with my uncle because he's a he's still like he was a pastor at a church for some years. Now he does like guest
Mm.
ministries and things. So he's like, nephew, he's like, I see what you're saying. I can't accept the title of it because I was ordained to spread the word of Jesus Christ. And I was like, I understand. I get it 100%. I've spent the first 18, 19 years of my life as identifying myself as a Christian. I believed it so much to the point where it created some degree of insomnia in my life, because when I was like a kid, I was hung up on the idea that the world could end at any time.
Mm.
And I was like, what if I go to sleep and the world ends? And that thought triggered this whole insomniac saga in my life for like the next like decade or so. And so it's not one of these situations where it's like, oh, well, you were never really a believer. No, I very much believed it, and um, so I understood where he was going to be coming from with the title of it. It seems a little too it's a little much, I think, for somebody who's trained to believe that God only exists outside of them.
Yeah, for those that really haven't
And I
explored
really
any
just wanted to make
spiritual concepts besides their immediate religious institution that they subscribe to, it's very difficult to understand some of those alternative concepts.
absolutely. I think that it's um, you know, I think we make this division between religion and what we might call like a cult, but they're very much like they're sort of like just they're they're the
They
same
are,
thing in
man. You could
varying
say it. I
degrees.
agree. I've said it many times
You know,
before. It's like a
you know,
cult, just like politics, but we'll get to that later.
it, yeah, but it's belief in many ways. And I was just having a conversation with my buddy last night about this, and we were talking about how belief in many ways creates this prison for your mind. Like it sometimes puts you in that place where it's like you'll when you talk to somebody with an alternative perspective, you'll hear something, but you won't even consider it because you feel like you know the truth. And as I get older, I'm feeling more and more called to bring unity to the spiritual systems in the world. And I know that sounds grandiose and that sounds like crazy, but that to me personally, I feel like the world that we live in is directly correlated with our lack of an ability to come together as spiritual people. Like we all, there's so many different religions, so many different spiritual systems. And I think at the core of them, there's always the tenet of, what you might call, the unity of all things. That thing is usually in most religions, at the core of it, that it all comes from this creator, that it's all just an outpouring of the creator. And I think so much of the spiritual world has been sort of transfixed on the differences, the dogmas of it, right? That they can't come together on what they agree on. And that's, I mean, to me, if you take that component away from the people, right? Now, of course, you live in like this spiritually devoid world that tries to pretty much turn you into a commodity with no regard for your spiritual essence. So I wrote this book as an introduction to just how I'm seeing things. I added meditations that I personally started. I formed my own meditation practices, which kind of led to me forming meditations, and then I was like, I want to give this to people, which led me down the road of becoming a teacher. But yeah, I feel like mindfulness is essential in coming into um, the understanding of the divine presence inside of you. Without it, you just kind of in this world of things that are different and weird and outside of you. But once you can really step back from it all, and you can see that there's something essential inside of us all and inside of everything, really, when you look.
Let's get deeper into what you mean by you are the God you seek. For me, it's taking accountability back for us as a human species. We can be amazing human beings just because that's the way it should be. First of all, instead of being a good person because you fear an eternity in hell or you want the reward of eternal bliss in heaven with the old man with a white beard telling you how proud of you he is, why not just do it because that's the right thing to do? That's what we should be doing as human beings, is loving thy neighbor, treating each other with love and respect, and treating the planet with love and respect, and harming no one. It's very simple to follow those concepts for me without having a carrot on the string of a reward in heaven. And I already got past the understanding of there is no hell. And my belief is we are indeed reincarnated multiple times, and this experience can be hell on earth or it can be a paradise. Going back to you are the God you seek, for me, this really means that we take full accountability back. We don't have to do things because of a fear or a reward. Like you said, we have this very powerful force inside of each and every one of us. If you have any kind of profound meditative or psychedelic experience, you get this understanding, almost knowing, that we're connected and everything is one. And after all my meditative experiences, psychedelic experiences, real life integrated experiences, I've come to understand that it is all one. And I know it's probably overused in spiritual and woo-woo terminologies, but I think that we are all fractals of source. We are all pieces of this one divine creator being, but it's also everything. My current understanding, even the worst of the experience here is for us to learn from and to grow from, and it's part of the experience. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I'm very much in line with how you see it because I think that that's what most of us who try to get away from the dogma of the conversation of what is going on here. We you start trying to find the simplest answers, right? It's simple to me that everything, like you said, is a fractal of source. That okay, I think a a large degree of the spiritual world would agree on that, right? It's only when you start getting into, well, I know God's name. I know the story of God. God talked to this person. God, it's only once that starts that there is issue. So I'm trying to find what transcends dogma. What is the thing that even dogmatic people could agree on? Um, I think when we uh, when we really take time to shut everything out, it that reality is not only there, but it's kind of like it sort of screams at you. It's like, yeah, look, there's this, you know, I often think about it in terms of lucid dreaming, and I'm sure a good deal of listeners understand lucid dreaming, but briefly, to me, it's when you wake up in the dream, and you are conscious of the idea or the fact that you're in a dream. Um, Part of my meditation lately has been on. I'm trying to be sort of the conduit for source in this dream. So I tried to, you know, uh, when you stop externalizing things and you start saying like, I am a part of this. I am the co-creator of this thing. Like when you own that, I don't know of a more powerful thought than to feel as though you are one with everything.
Another thing this connects to is idol worship is more rampant than ever right now. And this doesn't just include deities, ascended masters, or what we consider gods. This is celebrities, politicians, technology, anything in my view that requires worship is something that is not here for the good of humanity. Ruler means archon, archon ruler. I think that what we're experiencing, what we've been experiencing for centuries, is a suppression of who we are by our ruling class. But this also has brought forth the Abrahamic religions and many other spiritual practices that require us to get our power, our knowledge from outside sources, the gods, different ascended masters, spiritual beings, that we are powerless without them. And we have to call upon them for strength and for prayers. But we're already connected to all of these things, and we have the direct ability to access these understandings directly without going through these other sources, because you don't need these external intelligences to thrive in your life. And I think that's the whole point of what we're experiencing as a whole in humanity, is to take back accountability and take our own power back. We have access to everything these entities and extraterrestrials and angels and spiritual beings have access to as well. It's just that we've been so suppressed, and there's been an intentional effort to keep humanity from realizing that we have these powers. I do believe that there is a hidden understanding that humanity has much more power over our reality, over our own sovereignty, and more of a connection to what you would call God than we could ever understand.
Absolutely. When you were talking, what popped into my head was just like this idea that we have of like hierarchical systems. Like we have these systems in place to elevate others over other people, almost as like an example to say, here's the pecking order. You're way down there. This guy, he's on TV. Okay, so he's way up here. Now, whether or not we, of course that's not true, but when you live in a world that attempts to substantiate that, right? To the point where it's like when you think about people like Michael Jackson or something, where people just faint in the middle of his performance, or when you touch him and scream or something like that. Like that's some degree of, you wouldn't touch yourself and scream. You know what I mean? You're screaming because you think that touching him is so momentous that it's such a that there's such a difference between you. And when you look at the way societies are kind of laid out, I love looking at civilization, at in cyclical senses, right? So when you think about the way that it happens, there's always this elevation of certain. There's always a group of people who figure out how to elevate themselves over everyone else, and then eventually the people figure out that's all, that none of that is true, and then they have problems, and then eventually it destroys itself, and then becomes something else and does the same thing. So it's like I've been looking a lot of one of the guys, and I know Etienne de la Boetie.
I've had him on a couple of times.
I've been yeah, I know, I've definitely listened to him on here and on other things, but one thing that always sticks with me, but what he said is, his definition of government as, intergenerational crime family. Like I was, when he heard that, it's one of them things. It was like, ding, yeah, that's it. That you just kind of hit it on the head, right? So when you think about that, and if these people are the people who form our governments, then you have this criminal element that understands that it somewhat has to subjugate the people in order to elevate its own status, which is spiritual in nature. It may not even appear to be spiritual, but that is spiritual. When you tell somebody that their life is pretty much worthless and they live just to go work some machine somewhere, and that's how they define themselves, that kind of subjugation is spiritual in nature. Because I mean, on the flip side of that, what I was thinking last night. I was sitting outside talking to my buddy, and I was like, what if all these people just got up out of their, out of their houses and just went and started doing exactly what they wanted to right now?
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, but they won't because they've been so entrained. They're where they're supposed to be
Hmm.
at. It's 9 o'clock at night. You're supposed to be sitting here watching this show. And it's like that, that kind of subjugation is um there's a very real spiritual essence to
Hmm.
that.
You said something earlier that I think is very important, that every spiritual and religious theological understanding has a piece of the overall puzzle. And I've been saying this a lot lately. All of these understandings are like puzzle pieces, but as long as they stay separate and we keep dismissing each other's beliefs and we don't come together and compare notes on any of this stuff, the puzzle will never be solved. But I think the way to solve it is to take all these understandings, put them together, sift through it, see what doesn't make sense as a whole, and then
Mhm.
you have a better understanding, at least, of some of these spiritual concepts. And I think that's what it's all about, putting all these understandings together, taking out the BS that had probably been inserted over the
Mhm.
centuries by the parasitic ruling class, and having these better understandings of these spiritual concepts.
Yeah, I as I get older, man, like I said earlier, I'm trying to bring these people together because like you said, there's value in what they provide. I was one of those, after I spent, 18, 19 years in Christianity, when I got out of it, I was jaded by it.
Yeah.
I was like they just tried to deceive me for my whole life. I was like mad, and I think that that's part of the cycle, because now I feel like I'm full circle. And now, a couple days a week, I play basketball at different churches. And I started kind of having like this little, like, sort of like Bible study, even though I'm a non-believer, but we started kind of having like this Bible study based on some of my questions
Mm.
to them, right? And it's interesting because, you know, I'm reminded that just because our beliefs don't match up, these are beautiful people. That they're awesome human beings. The fact that they don't believe what I believe is
Hmm.
irrelevant. It's like Morpheus said on the Matrix. When the general was telling him, he said, "Morpheus, not everybody believes what you believe," and he said, "My beliefs do not require them to.
Hmm.
I don't need you to believe what I believe in order for me to see your value, for me to understand that you have something to
Hmm.
contribute." And if you know, I imagine what the world could be when if people could have their beliefs. I don't want to take anybody's beliefs away from them because that's their beliefs. Now, even if I don't think it makes sense, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't matter to me. Like I'm sure there's things that I believe that some staunch atheist would be like, oh, that's like like oh that you believe in the spirit,
Yeah.
So I don't mind not uh I don't mind somebody believing something that I don't understand, but when you have the need to be right to the point where you won't entertain any degree of value and it's something else, that's when it becomes problematic, I think.
Mm.
And I think that if the spiritual systems and the religions would do well to actually, check those things because that's what leads people out of their
Yeah.
religions. You know,
100%.
I'm watching people go through that. And I've been through it, so I'm like, I understand this is not a comfortable place to be
Hmm.
at. You know, I always thought about it in the sense of like, when I was a Christian, I had something like I had something inside that was like, yeah, you can hold on to that. It's really disturbing when you don't have anything there. when it's like a hole inside of
Mm-hmm.
you, and you have to like eventually, I think that for people on a spiritual path, they figure out what they actually believe as opposed to what they were told they had to believe.
Well, I had a very similar path, especially through my childhood. I grew up Catholic. Was years that I didn't have any spiritual beliefs because I was jaded by the Catholic Church and some of the experiences that I've had with it. But it's all really come full circle. And just like you said, I can look back at everything and have this understanding that I am here to help others to gain a better understanding of many of these spiritual concepts. That's why I've covered so many different spiritual beliefs and understandings on this show, is because I do believe that every one of them has very valuable information to contribute to everything. I know you wanted to get into mindfulness and meditation a bit, and there are many that don't really understand the purpose or the benefits and don't see how just sitting there and closing your eyes and doing nothing could be beneficial in any way. But tell us a little bit about your meditation journey and what you've gotten from it.
Well, it was funny that you said, there's people that don't understand the benefits of, just closing your eyes. And it's funny because I just had this conversation with my dad when I was telling him about some of the meditation classes that I've held, and um, he was just like, he's like, I just don't get it. He's like, you're just sitting there. He's like, I do that by myself. I was like, I was like, I get where you're coming from, but to me, mindfulness is about uh, choosing the direction of your thoughts. You know, I when I had first started meditating, maybe I haven't been meditating that long, to be honest. But it had such a momentous kind of effect on my life. Maybe 8 months ago, I started 8, 9 months ago, and it quickly became something where it was like, I need to do this as much as I possibly can because, you know, I I have children. I don't want to be short with my children. I don't want to be in a state of mind where I'm starting arguments with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to be at odds with my parents or like I don't that's a waste of life. It's a waste of life to just be uh walking around angry all the time because things aren't exactly how you want them to be. And I started meditating in the shower because the shower has always been my refuge. It's always been the place, yeah. So I eventually started, I had to harmonize the environment. Let's make it into, sort of like uh, some kind of a holy place or something, and let's make a ritual of
Mm-hmm.
it. Because I feel so different at the end of the meditation that you know you can see what it is on the other side of it where you're like, I come home from work, I feel drained, I feel far away from myself, far away from my dreams, far away from compassion, and I feel beat up and stuff. And then when I get into my meditation, I'm just starting to remind myself that there is more going on here than just the mundane, everyday grind of it. That there's something bigger that's happening, which is undoubtedly true. Whether or not I have it right, I don't know. But but it's like there is undoubtedly something bigger happening, and I'm not I think we sort of become entrained into ignoring the bigger thing that's happening so that we can tune into the drama of
Mm-hmm.
society, the drama of you're in every day. Oh, the guy cut you off and they forgot your bagel at the cafe. Like, we get so entrenched in those thoughts that we begin to define our lives by these sort of mundane
Mm,
concepts. And when I started to discover that you could really tune into much higher properties, much higher concepts, and define your life through those, it just seemed like a no-brainer to me that I would much rather spend my life in that context than to live a life where I just thought that life was about the everyday uh just the everyday grind of
mhm.
it. That's I've watched that. They call it a grind, and it's funny because it grinds people up.
Yeah.
And then I've seen so many people who they're while they're living, it's like almost like they're a corpse. Like it's like they're waiting to die. And you know, like I said, I think that there's not to say, and I understand that so many people have to go through that. And we largely live lives that we don't necessarily want,
Mm,
but we do have a choice, and we can begin to change it. I think you with the discovery, as a listener to you, you had that discovery process of the fact that you could take hold of your
mhm.
life and you could begin to form it in the way that you want it. And a lot of people think that that is completely nonsensical.
Yeah.
They just don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's it. It's sort of if you're not really trying to do what you think you're supposed to be doing, what is life? You know, it's just you making people
Mhm.
money. You never having enough money. I just didn't want to live like that.
Yeah.
And for anybody who has the inclination that they don't want to live like that, I want to provide them as much support as I possibly can to go down that road, to believe
Yeah.
in that.
I'm fascinated by what can be achieved with altered states, whether it be
Mm.
natural meditative states or with the use of plant medicines or entheogens. I'm not a proponent of pharmaceuticals or
Yeah.
narcotic drug use or anything, but certain types of plant
Hmm.
medicines can be very effective in healing and achieving these profound states of awareness. I owe so much to meditation and psychedelics as to where I am now and where I'm going and my understanding of all these spiritual concepts and myself, basically.
Hmm.
There are many crossovers of what we could experience through meditation, dreams, hypnagogic states. Any of these types of altered states can cause us to access this information field and even what I would consider intelligences that always reside beyond our perception, but I think there's also layers of reality that we can access, higher and lower vibrational realms of intelligence and information that we can access through these altered states. Now, for you,
Hmm.
was it just a sense of peace that you were getting, or were you able to access any kinds of new understandings and information?
Um, well, I think for me, because I've engaged definitely in the past, with plant medicines, and um, I always remembered what I don't remember who said. I don't know if it was Alan Watts who said it, but he said, when when you get the message, hang up.
Yeah.
Like he was saying, like once you get the message, hang up. He's like, don't make it a thing where it becomes, um, where you're continuously searching for the message that you're getting,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And that was kind of what was in my mind the last time I had that I had like a trip. I was, you know, it was some years ago. I remember I was with a buddy of mine, and we I remember we ended up going to a bar. It was kind of right next to his house, and I was seeing people, and they don't. I thought I was hiding it pretty well, I thought I was hiding it pretty well, but when you see people in those states, right, you can see what's beyond the layers of what you see in
Mm-hmm.
front of you, and people were just like I was just amazed by people. And I think that concept, because, in the days after it, right? Like, you're like, did I retain anything from
Mm-hmm.
that? Like, because it's like, I went on the trip. What did I take from it? What were the spoils of the trip, right? And I was trying to figure it out. And I was like, I think the thing that I got that last time was um, the, uh, the intense appreciation for people, because people are amazing. And a lot of the time, they're so caught up in uh, the fact that they make mistakes, the fact that they've done things and let themselves down, and some people don't like them. And, they let all those things kind of take away from their greatness. All you gotta do really is sit with somebody long enough, and you start to like understand like what was once kind of like. I've always been attracted to people who were somewhat outcasted. I've often felt outcasted in my life, so I've always been drawn to those people. But once you take time, right, to listen to them, you start to realize that there's these beautiful parts in them, and that's where I see the divine in a person. Not to say that I guess the entirety of the person is divine, but the reality is that when it shines through, and you're reminded that this person is here just like me, that they're here as an aspect of their creator, putting this life, trying to figure out what's going on here just like
Mm-hmm.
me. you know um I think that's the biggest thing that plant medicines gave me. And then I feel like mindfulness helps me to cultivate
Mm-hmm.
that, and to remember the beauty of people and things, and just to be grateful. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like a really like corny thing, but like
Yeah, it's
gratitude is
huge.
really like a superpower.
Yes.
Like people don't sometimes, like when you tell somebody to be grateful, and they're like, for what? Like, what do you even mean? Like, be mad at you because you told them to be grateful for
Mm-hmm.
things. But it's funny because when you really start to think about it, um, there is an infinite number of things to be grateful for.
100%.
You'll never actually run out. If you made a list in your head,
Yeah.
right, you would never actually run out of things to be grateful
Mm-hmm.
for.
I'm
But you have gratitude. No, go ahead,
No, it's
man.
okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead and finish.
No, what I was gonna say was like gratitude. Um, it helps you to. I think it raises you
Mm-hmm.
vibrationally, because once you start to feel like, oh, I'm not. A lot of times we feel like we're at a loss. We don't have enough of this. We don't have that. We don't have the thing that person. But gratitude lets you see that you actually possess plenty. And that's where I like to be at. Not in a state of
Yes,
scarcity.
man. I agree 100%. I love what you said. Gratitude is like a superpower. I couldn't agree more with that. I've made it just a natural thing every day, either when I leave the house or when I wake up and remember about it, I thank God. I thank the universe. I'm blessed and I'm so grateful for everything I have. And I don't think there's a day that goes by that I am just not thanking either someone or God or even myself. You have to thank yourself for
Mm,
things as well, because you have to give yourself a lot more credit than I think a lot of people do. And you said something that is
mm,
very important about psychedelics, that when you get the message, hang it up. This was very true for me as well. It took a few years of explorations, but I did finally get that message, and it was so strong and very profound. And
mm.
after I was able to process it, it was very apparent that I didn't need to have those explorations anymore. I got the message, and now was
Yes,
time to
yes,
just
thanks.
start integrating everything. And that is the most
Mm,
important part, is in this material realm, using the information and utilizing it in a positive way. Now, for the last few
yeah.
minutes of this show, I know you wanted to get into what is
Mm.
unfolding now, political polarization, the craziness that is permeating through our conspiracy culture. I look back at 2020, and there's been a very rapid progression of things. It started out where we were coming together as a community to try and understand what was going on. People were realizing that there was a fundamental problem with our government and ruling class, and that we were being lied to. And then we get the reaction from the parasitic ruling class to flood the internet and to flood our community with bad information, causing division, and it's getting worse and worse. And now we have this political season where they're throwing theological concepts into the campaigns and throughout this election cycle, and it's becoming so insane and divisive. So there's a lot happening right now, and I'd love to get your insights into how everything's unfolding.
Oh man, it's such a sight to behold. I mean, the other day, my son and my daughter were on YouTube, and they're watching like Pokemon unboxing and stuff, and then it just became so apparent of how wild it is that you're gonna put a political ad on a
Mm.
Pokemon YouTube video. For my kids are sitting there talking about Charizard, and then uh, then now they're talking about uh, this politician, this he did, and it's just like you're throwing this stuff in. It's becoming so obnoxious that I'm like, I wonder like with the public relations people. It's just like who thought it was a good idea to have like um because it was a conservative ad, they're showing all of the issues that they find. So they have like some guy at some pride parade, and he's got like some chaps on and like all this stuff, and it's like so so you're okay with so you have a problem with it, but you're okay with ultimately letting that play during children's videos on YouTube?
Yeah.
Like because now I have to answer a question, right? Now Dad, what's up with the guy? Why is it blurring his chest out? It's just like I, I wonder sometimes, because I grew up in a very conservative minded place, right? Like a lot of my friends, growing up, currently, that they're Trump voters, they're conservatives, but I also grew up with a lot of people who were, more liberal minded
Mm.
people. And in this time now, I find myself having conversations with people, just trying to get them to acknowledge the value of people on the other side of their argument.
Yes.
Because they've, I have a cousin, and some years ago, he said, there are no good people who ever voted for Trump. I was like, I know, like there's some of them are my friends. Like, what do you mean? He's like, no, it's impossible. And now, I have a buddy, who, he's kind of at this point where, he's so done um with
Mm-hmm.
liberals, that like he's easily triggered by them. And I have to like try to rein him back. Like like I know that you attach these things to these people, but you don't fall into the concept that your political affiliation makes you a better person somehow than this person just because you guys support like it, from a person, I think people more, my perspective and what sounds like what your perspective is we've sort of removed ourselves from like the two-party
Mm-hmm.
system. Like we're not like we see that these are two sides of the same
Yes.
coin. um we see there's nothing that I can do to get myself to start believing in it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like my dad's always coming to me and he's like, "Did you registered vote? You got," and I'm like, I I just can't, based off of what I've listened to people say, saw, read, I can't fall into that paradigm anymore because the idea that these political characters that they put out are somehow the most powerful people on the face of the planet, that seems like one of the craziest things that a person could ever believe. Like they don't even have enough money to be that powerful. Like, but they this is the role that they've been given, and the people believe in the
Yep.
roles. And ultimately, all it serves to do is to further divide the people, and that's my big issue.
Yeah, man.
It's just dividing people.
I think we're being gaslit on an extreme level. The theatrics are beyond ridiculous. You can look at both sides and example Trump at a rally talking about if Christians go out to vote, we're going to solve everything and you'll never have to vote again. This dude actually said that. It's like, what do you mean by that? Then you go to the Kamala rally where she's basically saying Christians aren't welcome. This man yells, Christ is king. And she's like, you're at the wrong rally. Now, I don't care what your spiritual beliefs are. That's not a
Yeah,
presidential thing to do when you're
no,
campaigning.
not at
So it's
all.
so ridiculous on both sides. And you have people that are basically worshiping their candidate as an idol, as a savior, that they're really going to make a difference in their lives. I'm not saying that the result of the election won't affect us each individually in different ways, because it will. It's going to affect each and every one of us. But we have to be aware that both sides are part of the same thing, just like you were saying.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You just have to be aware of the fact that you are watching theatrics, and for a lot of people, they're not viewing it like that. They're viewing it as some sense of reality. And I think people, especially who come out of conspiracy culture, you start to understand that the structure of the world, the structure of the power of the world, is not how it's
Mm,
marketed. Like they don't that like there are I think for a lot of people, and maybe I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I think a lot of people saw with COVID, when you saw all those countries in the world get on the same accord, it let you understand that there was the presence of something that transcended individual government.
mm-hmm.
Like it lets you understand that there is this presence in the world, right? That can align all of these things. These people don't agree about nothing. You know what I mean? These nations are always at odds, supposedly. They're always chirping back. It's like wrestling. You know what I mean? They're always chirping back and forth. But, when the commissioner comes in and says, okay, this is how the story's going, and readjusts it, it shows that there is something that goes above government, that is the facilitator of this
Hmm.
world. And I think some people would call that, an archonic presence, or some would call it demonic. Some would, but ultimately, whatever it is, it seems to be there, and I highly doubt that it cares whether that comes through the mouth of Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Whatever it is up for the
Hmm.
world, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
go back and forth
that's how I see
with
it.
what you were saying, this archonic force. It seems at times it presents itself as though it wants us to be aware of it, almost as if it's tired of doing its job and it wants us to start taking accountability. And that also leads me to think that maybe it's all part of a greater force that is awakening
Yeah.
humanity, and all of this is happening to serve a greater purpose. Like you said earlier, these clowns are playing their role and they believe they're doing this for their own self-serving purposes, but in reality there is something else possibly guiding the whole thing in a certain direction. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that has to do with, I don't know if it's powerful families. I don't know, I don't know if it's off
Mm,
world. I don't know what
right,
it
right.
is. But whatever it is has figured out in some way that it does not value life, right? It's self-serving in the sense where it would create a living hell for the vast majority of humanity, just so that it could, I don't even know, prosper in some
Mm,
way. But that present seems to exist, and I don't put names on it or anything like that because I don't claim to
mm.
know. But surely that thing seems to exist here, because this world we live in is not the world that I think most of us would create if given the ability to make a world.
That's the
you
other
know?
perspective that I struggle with. Has this reality been hijacked at some point? Are we being subjected to this archonic intelligence that continues to perpetually keep us in this slave state? Now, that could be the case, but I am very optimistic about things. And the way I see it is that either way, we are starting to become aware of it. I think that there are fundamental changes occurring in individuals' lives, like yours and mine and many listeners and many people that have started on their spiritual path. I also see that there's a lot of people who have no spiritual foundation who are exploring these concepts and getting lost, becoming insane, going mad. It's very important, especially for me, once I started going down these rabbit holes, to have some sort of spiritual understanding about the bigger picture. Because if you just stay with the surface material stuff, you will get lost in it and it will never make sense, and it will just lead to madness for most people. That's why you see a lot of people who start to look into this stuff start to get a spiritual foundation, and I am encouraged that that will continue to unfold as time moves on and whatever insanity they throw at us.
Yeah, that's my hope. I like you said, you when you try to maintain some degree of positivity, you almost have to look at it from the standpoint of, uh, when we talk about our creator, I think we put we sometimes have a way of putting our we're like, well, that thing has to be all good,
Yeah.
or what you would call all
Right.
good, because, well, that's what I strive to be. But it's like, um, I think our creator brings all things, not just
Right.
what I think is good or what somebody thinks is good. There's these different aspects that have to do with you know, there are different aspects that we define as good and evil. Um, but these are just
Mhm.
words, really. Like I was saying to my dad the other day, there's somebody in some third world country right now who hears about the United States and how its citizens fund its military to go do whatever it does in the world, and they're like, all those people must be evil. So there's people who think that us, just as being Americans, are
Mhm.
evil, right? And these are largely just, that may not, I'm not trying to say that they don't have a perspective, but it's all
Mhm.
perceptual. It's all about, there's somebody who thinks ill of you. There's somebody who defines you by your negative attributes. But it's up to you to gravitate towards whichever, to the side you want to. Like if you're um we have to, I think one of the problems that we end up having is that uh, we don't understand that in ourself is some degree of
Mhm.
darkness, and we don't like to acknowledge it. We're taught to be shameful of it, to hide it, and um ultimately to forget about it. But it's like that. I just don't see that as the natural order of how things
Well,
are. There always seems to be a dualistic concept.
it
You
makes me
know,
wonder if we could have spiritual growth and spiritual evolution without conflict and adversity. It's like in the Matrix, we
that's
created a
true.
perfect world for you guys, but you hated it. So we had to throw in
Yeah,
some
yeah,
darkness and evil in there so that you could be content. I think that
yeah,
on some level, we need some of the darkness so that we can choose the light. Basically, we learn from the darkness. There's many people that probably gravitate towards it and embrace the darkness, and that's probably a way to lose the game. I think that we're supposed to learn
yeah.
from it and then gravitate towards the light. And I think that's what could be happening on a larger scale with humanity is we are experiencing darkness, we're learning from it, and we're also learning whether we want to align with that or we want something better for ourselves. And I'm hoping that the majority of people will eventually learn that the darkness has no benefit and that embracing what's good is not only going to benefit them, but the whole of humanity. So, like I said, I'm optimistic. I know that there's probably going to
Mhm.
be a lot of turmoil in our future. But what would you say to people in closing that are looking for some sort of spiritual understanding and how to navigate some of the times that we might be facing?
Well, I think in this time, like you said, we expect turmoil. Um, I was just thinking not too long ago about how you know, us living in, I would say a Christianized society. Not to say that that's like some evil thing, but just as a byproduct, a lot of me studying Christianity now is about how do these things connect with my psychology, how I think about things. So I was thinking the other day about, you know, how for the last 2,000 years within Christian society, we've continuously lived in societies that were trained to believe that the world was about to end at any minute. Right. So even back then, right, they were expecting it to happen any day. Jesus said it was happen any day. And we've continuously sort of lived in these societies where we always think the end of the world is right around the corner. There's always somebody there, whether it's year 2000, 2011, or 2012, or there's always somebody. I love watching those videos where, people's prophecies that fall
Yeah.
through, because we're always thinking that it's that moment where the world can't take
Mm.
anymore. It's at the boiling point. And I think we've perpetually lived in that so long that we just normalize it now. And we're like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, look, if he gets in there, it's over. If she gets
Mm.
in there, it's over. It's just business as usual for us. We're always thinking the world's
Yeah.
about to end. So have some understanding. If you're feeling some kind of way about this, have some understanding that at other times in history, other people thought the same way, and somehow humanity found its
Mm.
way to continue. I have a deep degree of faith in humanity that regardless of what is thrown at it, we are resilient and we figure out how to overcome. We are champions. That's why you watch movies. You watch movies so you can see the protagonist be
Yeah.
the
Hero's
champion,
journey.
but the protagonist is you. It's that hero's journey. It's the protagonist. This is always a picture of you. This is not just you, but
Hmm.
us. This is who we are. We fail. It's like I heard somebody say the no, guy Bob Proctor. I listen to him a lot. He's a great speaker. But he said he talked to an astronaut. He said the astronaut told him that when a ship is going to the moon, it fails all the way to the moon. So it's constantly failing and course correcting. It's failing and it's course correcting. I I believe that's what we're
Mm.
doing. We're trying to figure out how to live on this planet, how to get along as well as we possibly can. We don't always get it right. Sometimes we mess it up, but ultimately, I believe that I don't believe that I'll be alive when on that day, but I hold out belief in humanity that we will one day figure out how to live with some better degree of harmony in this world. And like you were saying about with spirituality and meditation, I think that those are
Mm.
tools in coming into the realization that everything that you've put outside of you is actually connected to you in some way. Um, you know, with I know what it's like to go outside and to for everything to look like it's outside of me and opposed to me. And I also know what it's like to walk outside and feel in harmony. And if that's something that you would, want to integrate into your life, it's absolutely possible. It is not it's not an overnight
Mm.
thing, but the more you see the value in it, the more you do it, I think the better your experience here will be.
100%. It's like my friend Birch Driver says that there's this illusion amongst humanity of separation when if we just realize that we are all one, that would solve the conflict in our reality. But Will, thank you so much. This was great information. Before we close out,
No
let
problem. Thank
everyone
you.
know how they can find out more about you, pick up your book, all the good stuff.
Well, you if you really want to get a hold of me, willbadie@gmail.com. I'm waiting for you to flood me. No, but no, but absolutely. I'll give Chris a link to my ebook. If you want to check it out, I think it's $5 on Gumroad. But it's like I said, it's what maybe 13 pages or so, but it's not long. It's concise, and I wrote it with the intent to try to help people. So if you're into it, definitely go check it out.
Excellent. I will have that link right in the description. Will, if you could just send me that when you get a chance. It
Absolutely.
was a great conversation. I'd love to do this again. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all then.